The following Conscious Consumer Network recording of a live broadcast is available to purchase in high definition at ethymarket.com. Support free and independent media by becoming a CCN pledger. For €10 a month, you can have unlimited access to CCN high definition downloads at ethymarket.com. Ethymarket, the ethical marketplace for conscious consumers.
Hi there. Welcome to another live broadcast of Pateo Television, brought to you via CCN Conscious Consumer Network .tv. My name is Johan Oldenkamp and I am the host of this show. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share my screen and I'll start the presentation. If you've seen this show before, then you know exactly what will happen next. Hopefully everything is okay now and you can see what I see here in front of me on my screen. Because the title of the show is Parasitic Argons. We're going to talk about the argons, what they really are, and everything there is to know about this, because I think this is a very, very important subject. This is the 10th episode of Pateo Television in English. I do it in several languages, but in the English language, this is number 10. And probably you know this when you watch live, but if you're not watching this live, you watch this on YouTube, then know that every Thursday night, starting at 8 p.m. Central European Time, there is a live broadcast of Pateo Television via the non-stop internet television station of CCN, Conscious Consumer Network .tv. The languages differ. Now it's English, but for instance, next week it will be Dutch again, and the week after that also. But in 3 weeks' time, on July the 2nd, there will be another English episode. So if you want to know which language is broadcast, then go to my website, pateo.nl. You see it here, and there you find the agenda. And on that agenda, you see exactly which episode is broadcast when. And if you have any questions for me during the show or before or after, this is my email address. You can always contact me. This is my website, pateo.nl. It has information in several languages. Most of the languages have a lot of information, but some have very little. For instance, the information in Chinese or Mandarin and Arabic is very limited, and Russian is also very limited. But the others have more or less information. Most is English and Dutch, but also there's a lot of information in Spanish, French, German, and Italian and Turkish as well. And all the information about Pateo Television, you find it here. When you click in the menu left on PateoTV, there you find all the information about the upcoming and also the past episodes. And again, the URL of my website is pateo.nl. But most people do not like this website too much because it's a little bit old-fashioned, so to say. They think it should be a little bit more modern. Well, then I have good news for you, because it's also a premiere. I'm going to announce my new website because it's now open for public, and it looks like this. I hope you like it. I hope it's much more modern than the old one. I will have both of them because all the dynamic information like the agenda and so on, that's only on pateo.nl available. But the timeless information, so everything that is, so to say, will always be true, always be valid, that is on this website. If you go to holyscience.org, that's the URL, there you'll find all the information. The information here is only in English. So if you want other languages, then you have to go to pateo.nl. This is only English information, and this website is also still growing. I've not put everything there in English. There's much, much more to be put there, but I'll do that little by little. And if you like this website, then please tell it to your friends so that they will also learn to discover it. And if you have any comments on the structure or the content, can contact me, and I will really appreciate that. So this is holyscience.org, the new Holy Science website. The first episode of Pateo Television was on the Clock of Giza, was broadcast on January 8th this year, and it explains the dimensions of time. That's the most important aspect of this broadcast. And the pyramids on the Giza Plateau, they help us to understand especially the third dimension. Astrotheology was the subject of the second episode. January 15 was that broadcast. You can also find it on YouTube. This is how it looks like on YouTube. And it's very important because it helps us to understand the truth about Jesus. And I will come back to that in this episode a little bit as well, because that's very important to understand that. What you see, for instance, here in this picture, this is Mitra. And Mitra was the personification of the Son of God, but S-U-N. And here you see other depictions of other sun gods. So it's very important to understand that Jesus is also a Son of God, S-U-N. Yeah, if you don't know this, or you think that maybe I'm wrong, which a lot of people do, then please check out this video. Because after this video of 2 hours, you'll be very certain that I am absolutely right about this. Then the book of Genesis and the first chapter of that book, that is a completely separate story. And it is totally different from the rest of the stories. Actually, it should have been a book by itself. And explanation of that, and especially what it means, is in the third episode of Pateo Television, broadcast on January the 22nd. The fourth one, we talked about hidden symbolism in the one USA dollar bill, but also in 6 feature films. And then we talked about myth, and we busted them. Yeah, the big myth of that 9/11 was caused by airliners that somehow hit against the Twin Towers. Well, that's a myth. The truth is a little bit different. And that people walked on the moon, like looking like this, is also a big myth. The truth is a little bit different. And many, many more myths are busted in this 5th episode, broadcast on February 5th. And then in the 6th episode, we looked at the Mayan calendars, 3 of them, the Harp calendar, the Tzolk'in calendar, and the long count calendar. And actually, the long count is part of a system of more calendars as well. And that's all explained here. And most people have no idea that the so-called dream spell calendar is not an authentic Mayan calendar. It's a self-invented calendar. And I think it's very important that you know the difference between the self-invented dream spell and the authentic, original Maya Tzolk'in calendar. They are completely not the same. This was broadcast on February 12th, and then on February 19th, the 7th and last of the first series, and it was about the 10 Commandments. And again, this has nothing to do with religion. We have been tricked by religion. These 10 Commandments, you can better consider them universal principles. Because when you obey these principles, then everything works with you, so to say. The moment you start to disobey them or you violate one of those principles, then everything starts to work against you. It's as simple as that. So there's no reward or punishing by an external God. You do it yourself because you violate the principles. And the moment you start to realize that, then this world will really become a much better place to live in. Because then you understand the way it works. The natural principles of this world, of this reality, or this you can also call it this dream world, or this computer game. But it has principles, and if you don't know them, then it's a little bit tough to play the game good. This was episode 7, broadcast on February 19th of this year. And then I did the same episodes, but then in Dutch. Here you see the announcements of this first series of 7. And here you see the way it looks on YouTube. They're all available on YouTube. If you don't like the quality of the YouTube videos too much, then you should know there's also a high definition version possible to watch and even to download. Let's go through ethymarket.com. So probably you've heard about it, I hope. If not, then check out ethymarket.com, where you can purchase each video in AD quality, HD quality. And if you become member or pledger, then after 2 videos a month, you already have your money back, so to say. So that's when you want to have the videos in higher quality. These are in English, and this is how they look in Dutch, because they were also broadcast in Dutch. Yeah, a little bit different, but that's the way YouTube makes the front, the cover pages, so to say, the cover picture. So they're there as well, all available in YouTube and of course on ethymarket.com. And then the 8th episode was on the true human history, because our history has been altered. We all know that the conqueror writes the history, so in retrospect. So that means that we cannot be sure what really happened. And that's very true from the very beginning. So in order to understand our true human history, we need to fully understand what went on and who has a hidden agenda here in altering the true version. In 2 hours' time, I presented the basics of that true human history. I think that is the most important storyline here. But there's much more to tell, of course. I had to limit it into an episode of 2 hours. And here you see how it's available on YouTube. And I also wrote it down in a book. All the pictures that I show in the broadcast are in this book in color, in full color, together with a lot of extra information which I didn't was able to present in the broadcast. So if you want to know more about it, I call it the Tiamat theory, then you can purchase this ebook for only €5 or $6.83 USA dollars. You can pay through bank transfer or PayPal. Both are possible. Yeah, then you have a little bit more information. And then after the English broadcast, it was broadcast in Dutch, which is my mother tongue. And then I had help to translate it also live in Spanish, French, German, and Italian. So these are the 6 episodes on the true human history in 6 different languages. It was also I also tried to have an Arabic version, but that somehow went wrong. Maybe later that will come as well, I don't know. And other languages are still possible. If somebody thinks it should also be done in another foreign language, then please contact me. Last week, it was a bit of tough broadcast because, as I said, actually it would have been an Arabic broadcast, but my translator was not available. So I had to improvise. And what I come up with was explaining the natural ordering, both of the atoms. Some call it the periodic table of the elements, but the 2D structure of the table is not really helping us to understand the true dynamics. The 3-dimensional periodic octahedron of the elements does, and that's what I presented there. Yeah, that's one of my discoveries. And another discovery of mine is the rhythm in the prime numbers. Most people think they are random, but if you just do a little trick and you put the numbers in 6 directions, or you can call them dimensions as well, 3 dimensions and 3 directions or so, whatever, then you see that there is actually a hidden logic as well. And if you're interested in that, that's also broadcast in the previous episode of June the 4th, last week. And it's available, of course, on YouTube and on EthyMarket in HD quality. So now we come to the broadcast of, and if you want to know more about this, then there's a book available. I didn't update it completely, but the basic information is there. This book has been there since 2011, so it's a little bit ancient discovery, so to say. But I think most people don't get it yet. Hopefully, in time they will. But the broadcast of last week might have helped to get the true dynamics behind it. Yeah, this book is available for free. If you go to pateo.nl, you can find it. But if you go to holyscience.org and you type on books, you also find it there. Yeah, it's the same link. So now we come to the broadcast of this episode. And I mention all the previous episodes because it's very important then that you have watched it. if you watch it now live and you didn't watch the previous episodes, yeah, what should you do? You could, of course, do something else now and watch this later on YouTube or on ethicmarket.com. But if you want to continue, yeah, it's your decision, of course. But if you watch it on YouTube, then I strongly advise you to stop this broadcast now and make sure that you've watched all previous episodes, except 9, because 9 is not important to understand for this episode, but especially episode 2 and episodes 7 and 8. They are extremely important because this episode builds mostly on those 3. So if you have the opportunity to stop, then stop now and continue after you have seen episodes 2, 7, and 8, at least, and hopefully all the others as well. Okay, then I continue now, and I'll talk about the argons. In 1945, in December, this jar was found. Actually, it was found by accident, and that's also a little bit strange story. I think it was in a kind of criminal activity involved, and the guy who found it didn't want immediately to be that this became public, because otherwise his activity, I think it was a murder, would also be discovered. So I think that's a little bit strange about this story, but that means that it was dealt really delicately, so to say. The name of the discovery you see here is Muhammad Ali al-Saman, and the good thing about this discovery is that it is unaltered. It is not in somehow manipulated, and I will come back to that. Where it was found was here in the little town called Nag Hammadi. Here you see Luxor. There's Karnak. Yeah, I talked about it in episode 8. Yeah, the temple of Amun, the dark one, the hidden one. That's here. Yeah, here are the Saturnian priesthood. They had their headquarters here. That's why Akhenaten built his new capital here. But that's all explained in the episode 8. Nag Hammadi is there, somewhere in between. And that's where this jar was found. And in that jar, there were 13 books. And what do I mean by book? I mean papyrus, fully described, fully, how do you call it? I'm searching for the right word here. But actually it's a book like we know. I'll show that later on. And they were very well protected. And look at the quality. They put leather around it and even strings to make it tight. And these 13 books, they contain in total 52 stories, or you can call them treatises. Yeah, and it's all about Gnosticism. And why do we know it? Because there are 3 works of the Corpus Hermeticum. Yeah, that's Hermetic science. We can call it Hermetic science, related to Hermes Trismegistus. I'll come back to that later on in this episode. But it's all about what we now call alchemy, or any other word. I simply call it holy science. But in those days it was named differently. Yeah, these works are there, and which is also very remarkable. A part of the book written by Plato called the Republic. And it's not a literal translation, because this book was written in Greek and it was translated in Coptic, but it was also altered a little bit. So the people who were studying these scriptures, so to say, these texts, they fully knew what they were doing with it, or they fully understood it, so to say. So and to them it was extremely important. That's why they gave so much care to these you can call them holy, but I pronounce it with WLL, these holy scriptures. And as far as I know, these are the oldest books. Yeah, these were actually the first books as far as we know, because maybe there are books hidden for us, but when we talk about the public books, they're the first ones. The oldest public books. And here you see how it was done. This is the leather cover, so to say. It was wrapped in leather, and then they put leather here and strings, and it goes through. It's really, craftsmanship to make it like this so beautifully. So all the care they put in here to make it strong and long-lasting, I think that gives an indication of how important the content of these 13 codices were. And when were they written? Or we can also say, when were they translated into Coptic? And that was around 400 of our current era. Yeah, these books are 1600 years and a little bit more old. 1600-year-old book, which is really remarkable. So the content must be extremely important. And I fully can say that is true. It is very important. Yeah, I cannot read Coptic myself. Maybe you can. Then you can read what it says here. But the original language of these stories is not Coptic. It was Greek, just like the books of the New Testament. They were all written in Greek, and then later on they were translated. And in this case, they were translated in the language spoken by the people in Egypt, the Coptic language. And as I said, 52 different stories, and these are just 4 of them. I could also put all the 52 here, but that makes a little bit it's too much information for us to comprehend. You can find the titles easily on the internet. Some people, for instance, know the Gospel of Thomas, which is a really powerful, I think, gospel. I read it, and not in the original language, of course, not in Greek either. I read it, the Dutch translation of it. But I think the wording, and especially the emotional content of the emotional attachment to it, is really powerful. So this one looks extremely much like the 4 Gospels that we know. Yeah, Matthew and so on. John, Luke, and what's the 4th one? Sorry, I can't remember. And then this one, for instance, The Origin of the World, is about how our world got into existence. Well, if you've seen the 2nd episode, and especially the 3rd episode of PateoTV, then I explain what the true meaning is of Genesis, and that also explains the structure of our reality, of this world. And this book is also about the same subject, which is remarkable. And then here we find the word archons. So one of the books has the title in which archons is present. And of course it is about the archons. And the word hypostasis means understanding, literally. Hypo means under, and stasis means standing. So understanding of the archons. If you go to internet, the common translation of this word simply means rulers, and then Wikipedia assumes that these are the human rulers, the kings and so on. But that's not what it's meant here. They are the rulers, but not the humans. Of course, they're humans that serve them, but I will show that these are not human rulers at all. And that's the true meaning of archons here. And in this book, or text, the disclosure of the 8th and the 9th, this is a pure hermetic book. Yeah, you can call it pure alchemy or whatever you like to call it. So this is pure Gnosticism. But actually they all are, because in the original versions of the 4 Gospels, they were all Gnostic writings. In fact, and I will explain that later on in this broadcast, Christianity came from Gnosticism, but it is an altered version of Gnosticism in which the essence is completely twisted. That's the sick truth about Christianity at the moment. Yeah, when we look up ancient depictions of Gnosis, actually Gnosis means knowledge, but it's not just knowledge, it's very special knowledge, namely spiritual knowledge. Or you can call it insight in how everything really functions and what is the meaning of it all. What is the meaning of our life? And so on. That is what Gnosis is all about. And that knowledge, that you can call it that reunion of science and spirituality, that's what I call now holy science. So in those days it had a different name, but it's 100% holy science. But it was so important for them to hide this for others, because it was very dangerous to be caught with this kind of information. If the powers that still want to be, and in those days they also wanted to be, discovered that you had scriptures with you showing this holy science, then your life would certainly be ended. Yeah, there was a death penalty on this truth, because it is a clear threat to the people that want to control this reality. Knowledge is power, they say. Yeah, indeed. And if you have this power, then they don't have any power over you anymore. That's the whole the story here. So that's why those people were very careful in this handling this knowledge, and they had to do all kinds of tricks not to be get caught. And so they developed a kind of, you can call it secret language. A language you can only understand if you already know. Those who have eyes to see, they will see, and those who have ears to hear, they will hear. That was the trick used here. If you had no knowledge of Gnosis or Gnosticism or holy science, or whatever you like to call it, alchemy, then yeah, it's all wasted on you. So the power, you can say the soldiers or the police in our days, they don't have knowledge. So if they see the scripture, they think, yeah, there's nothing wrong with this, because they don't see the truth. That was the trick applied here. And for instance, these symbols, what you see here, these are very essential. Actually, these are earth, water, air, and fire. This is, again, an ancient depiction. This is how I put it now in my books. And I use colors to make it more interesting for our right hemisphere. But the essence is still there. And also, if you look at the depictions here on their heads, I will not explain everything here, but it's yeah. Again, if you have eyes to see, then you will see. That's the beauty. And here too, yeah, we discussed the days of the week, but look the depictions here. Venus, Friday, Mars, Tuesday, the Sun, Helios Day or Sunday, Mercury, Wednesday, the Moon, Luna, Monday, Jupiter, Thursday, and Saturn Day or Saturday. Really, really remarkable. These are the 7 wandering lights, and these are the 7 layers, and the seven heavens, and seven steps, and so on. It's again 7. That's why the number 7 is so important. And here you see 4, which is a square, and a triangle, 3, and a circle. Yeah, and you see the numbers 1 and 2 there too. Look at what this creature with 2 heads, which is a union of yin and yang, has in her hands. It's a compass and a square, exactly like the Freemasons used later on in their own symbolism. They just copied it from this. This knowledge goes back, yeah, to time immemorial. But most people have no understanding of what it is, so they look at these depictions and they have no idea. So they think, oh, interesting. There's a dragon here too. Yeah, what does it mean? Holy science helps you to explain everything, to fully understand it. Not by presenting a new kind of religion that you have to believe. No, it's fully based on logic and facts. So simply check the logic, check the facts, and if it's true, then you can build on it. That's the story here. Do not believe a single word. That's what I've been asking over and over again in my lectures. Do not believe me. I don't want people who follow me because they think I'm a kind of guru or whatever. No, that's ridiculous. If you still do that, then stop doing that immediately. We should have never done that in the past, but we should certainly not do that anymore. We don't follow anybody else. We just follow the truth. The truth will guide us. And people who see the truth, they can share their understanding of it. But that's all. That's what I'm doing here. I'm sharing my understanding. That's all there is. And the more people who will understand the truth, the sooner this reality will change, because that's what it's all about. We are here to change this reality for the better, of course. What happened to the Dead Sea Scrolls? They were discovered a little bit later, a year later, until about 10 years later. This period of 10 years, this decade, in total 981 texts were found near the Dead Sea. But these texts are fully under the control of the Roman clergy. So nothing comes into the public domain before they have a say. They had a say on it. They have to approve it first before it becomes public. And that's why we don't find any reference to argons in these scriptures. I think they, in the original versions, they were most certainly, because it's the truth for long. It goes back to I think 38,000 BCE, so 6,000 years almost. And I think everybody who knows, who's in the knowing, writes about it, because that's the essence. Our reality has been hijacked. But you will not find a single word about that hijacking in these Dead Sea Scrolls, because they were censored. Censorship by the Roman clergy. And the same censorship has been applied on all the books in the New Testament, and of course also on the books in the Old Testament, but that censorship was already earlier. So that's what we see. We see censored books, but even still, if you have eyes to see and ears to hear, even then you can still find the truth. That's the beauty of it, because you need only a half word to see it. But again, you need to have knowledge first. That's what I do with Holy Science. I can easily give you the true meaning of all those stories, because I have understanding of Holy Science. But it's so difficult for me to share that insight with other people, because they don't have that basic understanding of Holy Science. So they don't know if they should believe me or trust me or whatever. But they don't have to believe me at all. Actually, I'm encouraging everybody to understand Holy Science yourself. And then you will see it as easily as I see it. That's what it's all about. And also, another good thing, nobody can fool you any longer then, because you've already seen it. The genie is out of the bottle and it will never get back into it. So now we need to understand the timeline. The timeline here is crucial, and the timeline has been altered a lot. What happened in the year 64, it started with the prosecutions of anybody who had a different understanding of the reality, and different from the one that the powers that wanted everybody to believe in. And anybody who saw that was not true, they were prosecuted. So if you were caught, then you were literally fed to the lions. And it started during the reign of Nero. I will come back to that. And what you see here down, maybe I should have started here, this is the timeline. So this is the year 1, and then the year 50, and the year 100, and so on, of our current era. We are further on 2015 on this line. There was no year 0. Most people don't know that, but before the year 1, there was the year 1 BCE, before our current era, and then it goes back, of course, all the way here. The story of Mithras, or Mitra, it started with Mitra without the S. The S is actually added by the Greek and the Romans. They put the S to the word, but actually it was without the last S. That's you can call it belief system, but I don't like that word too much. It's actually more a science. I prefer to refer to it as a science. The science of Mitra, that goes back at least to 1500 BCE. And maybe it's even older than that. And I am convinced that this science reached its way all the way to Akhenaten, when he was still called Amenhotep IV. And when he got into contact with this science, this understanding, this holy science, then he saw the truth, and then he changed his name. That is what I have tried to explain in the 8th episode. It's all based on Mithras. So it goes back a long time. And it also reached, of course, Rome. This because the Roman Empire conquered all those areas, and they brought everything back to the capital, including this system. And even the soldiers who got into contact with this, they were really convinced of the truth of it, because it is the truth. When you see the truth, you immediately recognize it. So they recognized the truth and they brought it home, and they told it to their family and to their friends. So it was a kind of, to the powers that want to control the reality, was a kind of disease. Yeah, it was spreading so fast through the Roman Empire, it had to stop. And the only way they could stop it was, at least they thought so, was by using the most drastic measure they have, which is public execution of the people who follow this way of thinking. So that's why they were fed to the lions, thrown to the lions. But they were not Christians, because the whole idea of Christianity was not invented at that time. If we could go back in time and we would see those feeding to the lions, thrown to the lions in this year and so on, and the years after that as well, we could actually see it if we could time travel, and you would stop and ask anybody if they heard about Christianity. They would look at you as if you were completely mad, even if you spoke the right language, because that didn't exist there. And how do I know that for so sure? That's because of this guy. I will show his name later on. But he was the first, what they call it, apologist. So he wrote apologies. And that's to explain why he is right, actually, and why the others were wrong. He tried to explain the truth about the content of the ancient scriptures, what we now call the Old Testament, and that's why he was hanged in the year 165. And he didn't mention in any of his stories, for instance, the four Gospels, which would have really been helpful for him, because they would certainly give him a strong reason to say why he is right. Not one mention, not one reference, because the first Gospel was written in the year 200 or maybe even later, but most certainly not before 165. Yeah, this is my guess, about 200. Then the first Gospel was written, and then the other three followed as well. And many more. Yeah, for instance, the Gospel of Thomas, as I said before. But only 4 were selected. And that, I have to admit, that makes some sense. And then in the year 325, there was the Council of Nicaea. I mentioned that in episode 8 as well. And this was actually the first attempt to bring some union into the movement, what later on became Christianity. But even at that time, it was not even known as Christianity. That word is put on it later on, because the word Christos was already known in past time. Even Mithras was called the Christos. So then you could have called this all Christianity, but then you should include Mithra as well into Christianity. And if you only include Jesus in the Christianity, then you're making a big mistake. Yeah, then that kind of Christianity started about here. Yeah, when the Gospels were written, because then what they did as a trick is they changed Mithras into Jesus, because Mithras, if you were found with a text with this word in it, yeah, that's immediately death penalty. Yeah, that's really clear. So they changed the name to be more safe, and then they say, yeah, but it's a different story, and they probably changed the stories as well. So this is no longer a dangerous book to be carrying along with you. But books about Mithras were very dangerous. Yeah, for instance, let's say that Harry Potter is a forbidden book. And if you now walk on the streets and you get caught with a book of Harry Potter, then you will be immediately put into jail. If that's the truth, then yeah, I would perhaps, if I like the story so much, I would perhaps write another story with not Harry Potter as the main hero, but maybe Gandalf or another name, I don't know. And then suddenly when I get caught, I say, no, but this is not Harry Potter, this is a different book. Okay, then move along. And I'm not getting taken into custody. That's the trick they did here. It was so dangerous to be associated with Mithras that they came up with new stories. but the essence of the stories are still the very same. The very, very same. If you have eyes to see and ears to hear, then you understand what this is all about. So the whole idea of the sun god is much and much older, but it was just put into a new form, so to say. And that was the start of what we now call Christianity. And that's why the Bible was established shortly after that, in the year 367. Then the 66 books we now know as the New and the Old Testament together, they were established as these are the 66 right books. Yeah, and the Nag Hammadi codices, the 13 books that I just presented, they were written in this period, shortly after. Yeah, so I think there were translations of these stories of Jesus into Coptic language. But in reality, they were all Gnostic scriptures. These ones were changed into what the versions we now know, but these were not changed. These are still original. And by comparing these original scriptures with the changed ones, we can see what is the hidden agenda here. And the most important part is, of course, the erasure of all the words related to the archons. They are still present here, but they were completely wiped out here. Yeah, this is what I explained in the 8th episode, Mitra. Here you see a depiction of Mitra in the 1st century. So when they were prosecuted, the people, when they were fed to the lions, thrown to the lions, this is how they worship their sun god. You can clearly see the rays of the solar rays around the head. So this is a personification of the sun. And the sun gives us energy. The sun gives us light. The sun gives us life. So life, light, energy, it's all coming from the sun. And that's why the sun is so important to us. But nowadays, we are getting confused, or at least people who are ignorant get confused, because they think the sun is something bad. We have to wear sunglasses. And the solar flares are very dangerous, and they try to somehow destabilize our world and so on. So the sun is now suddenly something bad. While in the old days it was worshipped as a god, and of course it is a god. It is the most important god in our solar system. So why shouldn't we worship that god? We should, of course. Yeah, and here you see it's already connected to Helios. This is the name I use for the sun god, Helios. But you can also call it Mithras or Jesus. It's all the same. And it also came all the way through to the Vedic scriptures, the Vedas. And there he is called Mitra, because it comes from the same origin. The Indo-Aryan culture and the Mesopotamian culture, they were used to be one, but you can say they migrated into two different cultures eventually. So the god Mitra with an H became Mitra without an H. But this is already written down in ancient Indian writings of 1500 BCE, and it is called Mitra. That's the name, and the origin is clear. It's of course Mesopotamia. It's the same sun god, and then later on, 1500 years later, it found its way all the way to Rome, and then the S was added, Mithras. Yeah, and this is the picture that I showed in episode number 8. On the left, you see the depiction that was used in the ancient Persia. Yeah, this is coming from ancient Persia or Babylonia or Sumer, any name you want to call it. And this one is later on. Yeah, I think this one is actually from India, but I'm not 100% certain. But it's the same idea. Yeah, the solar rays around the head. And as I explained, the storyline is exactly because in ancient Roman days, when you talked about Mithras, this is what was known about him. Born on December 25th, of course, because then the days become longer and the nights start to shrink. That's an important day. Yeah, the comeback day of the light, and the virgin birth, and the 12 disciples, which are the 12 zodiac signs, and the miracles, and the 3 days dead. That's of course the 3 days before this comeback. So from the winter solstices until 25th, those are 3 full days, 3 natural days in between. And he was the sun god. Of course, he's the sun god, and he was worshipped on Sunday because the day of the sun was already there in those days. Yeah, around the beginning of our current era, there were the 7 days of the week as we now know them. They were already there, and the 7th day, the day of the sun, the day of God as we think now, but it's the day of the sun god. That's worship. That's why we still call it the Sunday. But we can also call it the Mithras Day, or the Helios Day, or the Jesus Day. It's all the same. That's the Sunday, the day of the sun god, the highest deity in our solar system. And now we come to Nero. I also mentioned it in episode 8. Yeah, this guy, it's not really his name, but that's the name we now use because they have so long names that all the same names reappear over and over again. It's a bit confusing to us. We just want a single identity name. So we name him Caligula. And he started with the whole idea that we have to entertain the people, which is still going on. Yeah, we still have all the sports tournaments. We still have all the television shows. Every night we get entertained again and again and again. So that we are distracted from the truth. And what is the truth? Well, I'll explain that later on. The truth is that this reality has been hijacked. But from entertaining the people, Nero started to combine it. Yeah, in the year 64, he started to entertain people by throwing the believers, so to say, in Mithra to the lions. And he did then 2 things at the same time. People somehow liked it. I don't know why, but somehow we like it that other people get killed and are torn to pieces. And and he also gave an example to the others. So, say if you get caught, then this is your death penalty, and it's not really a nice way to go. So you better stop worshipping the sun god. Worship the Dark Lord instead. Otherwise, you know the consequences. That's what he did. He was really barbaric. And his name was Justinos, but for most English people that's a little bit apparently too difficult to pronounce, Justinos. So in English it just became Justin. But of course that's not his real name. His name was Justinos, Greek name. And he was murdered, he was hanged because he kept faithful to his own convictions. He didn't want to be transferred into a worshipper of the Dark Lord. He stayed faithful to the Lord of the Light until the very end. And that's why he was hung to death together with his companion, so to say. And he wrote 6 books. Yeah, they are called apologies. And these apologies, he explains why he is right and why the Judaic believers, or the Pharisees, or I like to call them, the people that know the scriptures from the Hebrew tradition or the Judaic tradition, why they were wrong in their interpretation. So he went to a lot of trouble to write these books and explain over and over again why he is right. If he would have lived in our days, he would have just, perhaps like I do, had a website and tried to explain why he is right and why everything else is wrong. That's exactly what I'm doing right now. Try to explain why mainstream science is wrong, why mainstream religion is wrong, and why holy science is right. So I don't want to end up like him, of course, which is of course not going to happen. But it proves that he was really convinced of the truth he was speaking. That's why he was so strong. That's why he didn't give in at the end. And he lived here in what we now call the West Bank. So in the heart of where all those so-called stories would have been happened around Jesus, but he didn't use one word to refer to it. And it's only about 100 years later. So that's strange. If there would have been, all these stories would have been historic, he would have most certainly referred to it. but he didn't. So they were not historic. I think this is a clear proof. And he didn't refer to any of the Gospels. So that means those Gospels were not written in those days. Another clear proof. Yeah, this is very plain and simple logic. If you want to argue with me, please do come up with a good argument. And if you can't, then be a man or a woman and admit that I am right. And if you had another idea, then that other idea is wrong. I think that's the simple truth. Study his work, see what he wrote, and then reach the same conclusion as I did. Yeah, here you see him, his name, Justinus. And here his head been put over because he was murdered. Actually, he was hanged. He was hung, I think, hanged. We say hanged. Yeah, he was a martyr. And that's why he was called. And all the stories in Wikipedia, they talk about Christianity. Well, that's really silly because the whole idea of Christianity was not invented then. So it's ridiculous to call it Christianity. Call it Mithraism. That's good. Or call it Gnosticism. That's good. Call it holy science. That's also good. But don't call it Christianity because Christianity was an altered version. Was a censored version. Censored by the Roman clergy. And then we got this guy, Constantine I. I mentioned him already in episode 8. What he actually did is he allowed people to be openly Christian. Yeah, but as I said before, I'll come back to here. The whole idea of Christianity, was somewhere around here. Here it started. So that's why he allowed people to become or be openly worshippers of Christianity, or whatever you like to call it, believers in Christianity. Because the truth here is simply, if you cannot beat them, and that's what they saw, they were unable to wipe all the Gnosticism, the Gnostic scholars out. So they gave him something that looked like the same, but it was actually an altered version. Because if you look good at Christianity, you think it's about the sun, because it's copied in all other ways from the sun god Mithra to the new sun god Jesus. But if you clearly look in what's happening, the whole idea of sin, and that you are a sinful being, and that you have to pay for your sin, those ideas are added to the original story, and they are absolutely wrong. Nobody is sinful. Of course, there are sins, but that's different. You can do something which is not good for you to do but you will learn from that. And learning is always a good thing. So we can make mistakes. There's nothing wrong with that. If we don't learn from our mistakes, maybe that's a sin. But even that, in the end, we will learn. So the whole idea that somebody was crucified for our sin is completely ridiculous. And that ridiculous idea was added, and there are other ridiculous ideas as well. And of course, they made the story much too literal. It's a spiritual story, like the story of Harry Potter. We shouldn't take it literal, like it's a historic book and that it actually happened all. No, there's a hidden meaning, and the same is true for the Gospels and all the other books as well. The hidden meaning, that's what it's all about. But somehow this Constantine was able to pull off this trick, and most people converted themselves to Christianity. Let's say they adopted Christianity as if it was the same. They didn't see the changes that were made. So, and as it was allowed, so to say, you were no longer arrested or even murdered when you were Christian in those days. People said they were Christian, and from that moment on, this whole movement of Christianity, you can say, was somehow taken over. Yeah, just like the Occupy movement, from the very start, this movement has been taken over, and it was converted into a different direction. The same happened here with the Christianity movement. It was deliberately created in order to trick people who want to follow the sun god. That's why he was declared a saint later on, because he did a really good job for the people that want to control this world. And he also started to build their own highest temple, the Basilica of Saint Peter. That's why the Roman Catholic power group, or I can better call it criminal organization, was so happy with this Roman Empire, because he played really along with their agenda. This is much later, more than 1,000 years later. They had a really big headquarters now next to the obelisk here. And later on, it was even bigger behind. But this is the power control group ever since. And they claim that this guy who was mentioned in the Gospels, he was actually called Simon, but then he was known Simon Peter, because Peter means rock. So his faith was like rock. It was really strong. It was all, you shouldn't take this all literal. This is just a way of explaining things. But they claim this was a historic figure, and actually they even went further. They said he was the first pope. But this is completely ridiculous, because this guy never lived. This is a fiction story. Like I say that Ron Weasley was the first pope, because Ron Weasley never really lived. Yeah, of course the actor lived in the films, but the character didn't live. And the same is the same here. This is a character in a story. And to claim that this was the so-called first pope is completely ridiculous. And why did they choose this guy? Well, he renounced Jesus 3 times. This very night before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times. And that's what he did. And 3 means complete. So the first one who completely renounced the sun god, that was the first so-called Pope of the Dark Force. That's why they chose him. And then we got this guy from Alexandria. He was the 20th bishop there of the Coptic Orthodox Church. And he was the guy who said these 66 books, they are together now known as the Bible, the Holy Bible, the Holy Scripture. That was the moment, that was the year the Bible as we know it now was decided, that collection of books. And from that moment on, that's the most important book for this Roman Catholic power group. And that's why we find it everywhere. There's not a hotel room in the Western world where you not find a copy of that book. Most people have it, hardly anybody reads it. But if you read it, and I advise you to do so, but of course with knowledge, with eyes to see and so on, then you find many interesting hints there. At least I see them everywhere. But of course, you should make a really good distinction between Yahweh and the one true God, because those are so far apart, can't be further apart actually. And in the modern translations, they are all mixed together, so that makes the reading a little bit difficult. Yeah, it's like you put Voldemort and Harry Potter, you give them the same name, and then you make a story about it. That's a bit confusing. Yeah, if you translate it to another language and you use for the both types, both Harry Potter and Voldemort, the same name, I think people will not get the story completely. That's my humble hypothesis here. Oops. So again, the timeline we see here. Yeah, here was nothing known about Christianity. That came here, and from that moment on, it went bigger and bigger. And the powers that want to control this world put all the pressure they had on making this movement big. Yeah, what we saw in Europe, the Spanish Inquisition, and there's much more. Yeah, you cannot mention it all. All the violence done in the name of their so-called God, their horrible God. That's actually what Christianity now is. And most people who think that they are a true Christian, they should really know the truth about this. They should learn the distinction between the true God of light, and all the horrible things that are done in the name of the dark God, the Lord of the darkness. And they are mixed in the Christianity as if they are the same, but they're most certainly not the same. Then we come to the Gnostic version, because as I said before, these codices were written in about the year 400, about the same time as the whole movement started to become big, and there were people who knew about the coup, you can call it coup d'état, something like that, by the Vatican. They knew there was something fishy about the stories they now call the Bible, and that's why they tried to preserve the original stories. The original stories in not altered by the Roman clergy. And that's why they were so careful in not showing that they had copies of those original stories, because they would have been executed straight away, just like here. Because they were still a big threat to the power group behind Christianity. That's why they had to do everything in utmost secrecy. And that's why we found them later on, buried away, far away. Because if I had those books and I was living there, I would most certainly bury them deep in the ground and make sure that they were very hardly likely to be found. A scholar, a scientist who studied those original stories, again, not altered by the Roman clergy, is Mr. John Lamb Lash. And he has given many interviews, so you can find a lot of information about his interpretation of those scriptures. But he also wrote a really important book about it, and it's called Not in His Image. And what does he mean by his? His is, of course, the Dark Lord. And we are not created in the image of the Dark Lord. That's what the Dark Lord claims. And that's also what Mr. Sitchin puts in his book, that the Anunnaki created us human beings. But that's absolutely not true. They had nothing to do with our creation. Maybe they changed us, maybe they altered us, but the original creator of the human beings that you and I are has nothing to do with this so-called dark God or whatever. And that's why the Genesis 1 verse 27 is wrong translated. Because, as I said before, there should have been, let gods make man in their image, after their likeness. So the whole idea of his image is wrong. But I don't think Mr. Lash got it really right by his interpretation, because he didn't see that there were beings before this. So, but what is good about his work is that he helped people to understand that there is a hidden meaning in the books found in Nag Hammadi, and the most important part of that hidden meaning refer to the archons. And that is what I'm going to explain in this episode. You can still buy this book. It's 464 pages. It was published in the year 2006. And I would very much to invite Mr. Lash over one day to come in this TV show, for instance. And then we can have a talk about this, because I'm really interested in his take on my explanation. Anyway, the very good thing about this book is that it helped people to see the difference between the truth and the books in the New Testament, because then it becomes clear they were altered, they were centered. And this is what has been censored out. Interpretation of Lash and others as well, John J. Whitener, for instance, they talk about two types of creatures. And those creatures, they are able to somehow manipulate the way we think. I'll explain that later on. And they feed from us. They need our energy. So they are parasites, and they are not original from this world. They invaded this planet, and since then they use us as their source of energy, because they need energy to survive, and we provide that to them. But we have to be tricked to do that, because if we knew the truth, we wouldn't do it anymore. And then they would be on a really big diet, and eventually they will starve. So that's what they don't want to. They want to continue existing, and that's why they have to trick us. And Lash and others as well say there are two types. The main type, we can call them the reptilians nowadays, but it's a little bit like a draconic or reptilian type. Looks a bit like this. This is exactly how the Anunnaki were described in the Sumerian clay tablets. So they were tall, powerful beings, very aggressive, and there were other beings as well. These are a little bit embryonic types, look like newborns just out of the or maybe still even in the womb. Neonates, so they look like fetuses, with really big amandel-shaped eyes and small bodies with a relative big head, and they are more passive. They are so-called helpers, and probably they are artificial creations by the Anunnaki. They are their servants to do their dirty work, so to say. Yeah, there are many sightings of these, and maybe the whole Croswell the crash of the UFO with probably these kind of beings. I'm not sure if it's true or not true, but there are many sightings of these beings, so I think there's a lot of truth in it. But most importantly, they were described in the Nag Hammadi writings 1600 years ago, and they are not altered. So how can those descriptions that old match fully with what we know nowadays? I think that's really remarkable, and to me that's a clear sign of the truth. And what they do is they subliminal enter our minds, and when they are in our subconsciousness, they can make us believe things, they can make us do things, or they can trigger certain emotions. And they do that in order to make sure that the energies that come out of us are what they need to survive. Like we milk cows, we know exactly what to do to get the milk out of the cow. So they know in the very same way exactly what to do to get the energy out of us the way they want it, or the energy they need or they require. So they can deceive us, they can control our minds. That's what they are good at. They can make us believe anything. And the techniques they use have become more and more advanced. But from the very start, they do that. And why, again? It's because they need our energies to survive. Without us, they would not be able to live here. They see us like cattle, or like agricultural crop. That's their idea of us, and that's why there are so many. Is it normal that in such a really short time, our population went from, I think in 200 years' time, from 1 billion to 7 billion? How can that be possible? Such an explosion of human beings. Apparently, they are very hungry. That's my interpretation, because they need a lot of energy. And of course, you can see where this is. This is in the Vatican. Yeah, so can you see the resemblance between the masses here? Their energies are being taken away from them, and the chicken here, their eggs or even their body is taken away, and the crops here. This is all the same. It's a mega farm. Mega farm. And this guy, which was a well-respected scientist in the mainstream world, astrophysicist and an astronomer, Fred Hoyle was his name, and he said this, and he called a group of people together on May 10th, 1971, and he talked about what's going on. And of course, there are many other whistleblowers as well, but this guy was not delusional, and he talked about things he knew. Yeah, so it was really difficult for the so-called trolls, internet trolls or whatever, to debunk him or say that he is mad or that he is not, that he's making things up, because he was well respected in the mainstream world. For what it's worth, of course, but I think it's really important. And what he's saying here, I can read it yourself. They have been here for countless eons. I think it's true. I think it's true for at least 6,000 years. And they have probably controlled the development of Homo sapiens. That's true. Yeah, he used a different word here. He used the word evolution, but that's a wrong word. It's development. There's no evolution. The whole idea of evolution is nonsense. All of what man has built and become was accomplished because of the tinkering of these intelligent forces. They are very intelligent. It's absolutely true. They know what they're doing, and they're much smarter than we are. So they have figured it out a long time ago. They know exactly which button to press in order to get the correct response. Just like we know how to maltreat animals to get the results we want. It's exactly the very same. They know exactly what to do, which buttons to press to get the results they want. But the point is, we have no clue. We think it's normal because we don't know better. And maybe when you're a chicken and you live here, you think this is normal too, because you don't know better. And maybe these plants think it's normal too, because they don't know better. Yeah, this is going on for generations. And we think it's normal, the way we behave. But it's not. We don't behave normally. Because, yeah, we behave inhumane. There is so much terror, there is so much violence, there's so much horrible practices going on this planet, and we think it's normal. It's not. It's very not normal. It's inhumane. Let me give you an example. When you had a fight, or you were really angry with somebody, and you shouted and you did all kinds of things, just think of that situation and then think 5 minutes later or 10 minutes later, how you feel at that moment. After that horrible situation, you feel really low in your energy, like all the energy went out of you. That's true, because the moment you let all that energy go, your anger, your frustration, your suffering, your pain, your whatever, your sorrow, you let it all out, they ate it, and it's all digested by them. They appreciate it really much that you did that. But imagine that now something completely different. Imagine that you won the World Cup or whatever, that you did something great, you achieved your goal, which you strive for so long, and you celebrated in a huge way. You used a lot of energy to be happy. 10 minutes after that, do you feel also empty? No. Because that expression is also very much energy that went out of you, but that doesn't make you empty. It's not sucking the energy out of you. And all the expressions of negative emotions, that is when energy gets sucked out of you. And that's exactly what they want. They know the right buttons for us, if we are not aware, if we are ignorant of this, to bring those energies out, those negative energies out, to express them, and then, they eat them. They take them from a dish, and they're very happy. So that's what we all should learn. We should learn to study our emotions, and not only our emotions, all our inner energies. They eat from our despair, our fear, and our rage. And the moment we express it, then they are having dinner. Of course, we know the difference between humane and inhumane behavior. I don't have to explain anybody. Any child knows the difference. So why did we become so inhumane? Why are we maltreating each other that much? What is the reason? And the reason is we are subliminal made to do that. Love, peace, and understanding. Yeah, everybody fully agrees with this. But it starts with understanding. If you don't have understanding, there will never be peace and there will never be love. Never. Never, ever. So if we don't understand the true nature of our reality, then there is nothing to be gained here. So it starts with knowing. The New Age movement will never tell you this, but I am telling you it. It starts with understanding. Any world that is good for us allows full self-expression and full self-determination. That's very simple. And any other world in which that is not fully allowed, when it's restricted in any way, that is not the world we want to live in. Can you fully determine your own life now? Can you determine how you want to live? No. There are many rules and regulations which are not serving you at all. So we don't live in a world of self-determination. People think they do, but they are fooled. We live in a world of slavery, where people have to work very hard to make a living. But we don't have to work at all if we had a free world. If you want to work, it's good. If you don't want to work, it's good too. We can all live from the land. We don't have to do anything. in a free world. We don't live in a free world. We live in a world of slavery. Slavery looked like this long time ago. Yeah, not too long at all. Very short, actually. But slavery is still going on. It only looks a little bit less obvious as it. It's more hidden. But it's the same thing. People go to their work every morning and drive back tiredly every day again. And they have to repeat. They do silly jobs. They do useless work day in, day out. Why? They need money. They have to obey. The school system makes us obey from the very start. That's the world we live in. I hope you see the difference. In a free world, in a free state, the truth is the only authority. Nobody is saying what is right or wrong except yourself. And how do you know that? The truth itself is telling you what is right and wrong. But in the state that we live now in, their authority tries to tell us what is true and what is false, which is completely wrong, of course. Yeah, we need to comply, and if we don't comply, we get punished. And if we repeat good, then we get rewarded. And we have to confirm to that so-called truth, so both inside and outside, all obey. And if you reverse this word, you get Ebola, which I think is funny. Yeah, the truth is the authority. Then we live our own truth, and we reap what we sow. That's the only true principle here to understand. There are more, but this is the most important one. What you give out will come back to you, one way or the other. And everybody is unique. That's why we're all here. Everybody is a unique being, a unique expression of the oneness. So be yourself. That's the guideline. What does it show here? It shows that the people in ancient Sumer were controlled. That's at least my take on this picture. This is an Anunnaki, and the Anunnaki is holding here a kind of pine cone. But the pine cone to me is a clear reference to the pineal gland. So they know how to control our pineal gland. And by doing that, they can alter our understanding of reality. And that's still going on with fluoride and chemtrails. They use every trick they know to control our pineal glands, because they know when it's functioning fully, we cannot be controlled any longer. And that's what they're really afraid of. So that's why they use all the tricks to control it. And this is a kind of bucket or maybe a teapot. This is also remarkable here. You see the same depictions here and here. Yeah, and here too. And it's, I'm running already out of time. 7 layers. To count it, there's 7 layers and 1 at the top. In my books I explain this. Yeah, and you see Marduk, or actually Nimrod. Yeah, it's here. This is the guy. So he's controlling. He's a kind of semi-god or demigod. Apkulu is the word for that. And he's controlling man, and then they are controlling some kind of reality, or they obey it. That's the picture here. So I see that the gods or the kings, the semi-gods, they are controlling human beings, and they are somehow worshipping this system. Or maybe they are the priests. I'm not sure how to see this. But there were 3 different types of semi-gods or demigods. Yeah, a kind of fish guy, a kind of griffin type of guy, and of course a more human type of guy. Yeah, griffin with a kind of fish head or a dragon head. And the picture you see in the middle later on, that became known as Zarathustra, and in the English language it was changed into Zoroaster, actually in the Greek language. And I don't have time to explain all that, but this is a really important subject to study. So if you don't know anything about this, then please do so, because this is key. And this is how it was depicted later on. Can you see the strange picture here? It's half is a human face, and the other half is a really strange kind of alien, off-planet face, extraterrestrial face. My interpretation here is they learned how to take the form of human beings. And probably a lot of human beings are not really human beings at all. They're inside archons or Anunnaki, or whatever you like to call them. Yeah, I can't explain everything. I'll explain a little bit now, but to get a full picture, please, buy this book, I'd say, or buy at least the first 2 chapters for €5 or $6.83, because then you get an understanding of the basics. These television shows are just to show a little bit of the truth of holy science, but it's impossible for me to explain everything. Yeah, this is a basic picture, the energetic system. Actually, there are 2 systems, a kind of vortex going around and a kind of donut shape, or maybe a spiral donut shape in the middle. And they are everything to do with magnetism and electricity, but I cannot explain that now. And in that donut, in a torus field that goes round, we have 4 phases. And I call them the white phase, the blue phase, the red phase, and the black phase. So black and white are under the surface, and red and blue are on top of the surface. And that's how it goes round and around and around. Everlasting, eternal. And that's what we can call the 4 energies, because the phase that goes down to the core, to the 0 point in the middle, that's the earth phase. And we have the air phase coming out of the 0 point to the bottom. Then on the outside, we have water to the middle, and from the middle to the top is fire. Those are the 4 essences, the energetic essences: earth, air, water, and fire. And I use these colors. Earth is black, air is white, water is blue, and fire is red. I think that's easy to understand why I use these colors. And with a lot of chemtrails, the air looks indeed white. Actually, it's colorless, and water is, of course, colorless as well. Yeah, if you look at my glass here, I'm sure you can see it. There's no color here in the water. And of course, earth is not everywhere black, other colors as well. And fire has many more colors than red too, but think these are the basic colors. Because black and white, they belong together. They form a kind of couple, and red and blue too. So that's why I use these colors. This is the way it was explained in ancient Greece. Actually, there are 2 dimensions, wet and dry. So the dryness or wetness is one dimension, and the temperature is the other dimension. And if it's wet and hot, it's air. Hot and dry is fire. Dry and cold is earth, and wet and cold is water. So it's very simple. Yeah, the male, the yang energies are up, and the female, the yin energies are down. And these are the kind of creatures, because they personify everything in order to make us understand. The sylphs are the air creatures. The salamanders, actually means literally fire inside, are the fire creatures. The undines are the water creatures, and the gnomes are the earth creatures. Just to make it more understandable, just a way of explaining it. 4 types of energy: energy of movement, energy of chemical, attraction or explosion, magnetic energy, and fire energy. I'm running too much out of time, sorry. Physics says these are the 4 forces of nature. Well, actually, they're all effects of one force. That's at least how I see it. Gravitational force is not a force by itself. It's just an effect. And the same is true for the electromagnetic force and the so-called strong nuclear force and the weak nuclear force. Radioactivity is actually a result from the fire force, or the fire effect. And we can, of course, lift things with sound. So how is that possible? Only if it's not a real force. And we can, maybe you've heard about it, the party levitation, can do it easily with 4 people and 1 in the middle. Then you feel actually the gravitational force is not a real force. It's an effect. And you can temporarily reduce that effect or counter effect it. And this force, the so-called strong nuclear force, is 10 to the power 38 stronger than this force. How can you use 2 forces at the same level if one is 10 to the power 38 times stronger? Can you imagine? So they're not at the same level at all. Yeah, you can completely ignore this force. When we play card games, we use 4 different symbols, or they call it colors. But the word color is not really handy here, because there are 2 colors to me and not 4, but that's the thing. But this means 1. It's pointing to the 0 point. That's spades. Heart is 2. 2 lines are connected, melting into 1. Clubs is 3. Of course, you can count 3. And diamonds has 4 sides, so it's 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. These are the 4 forces. These are the two female, the yin forces, called red. Red is warm, and black is cold, the two yang forces. They increase life energy, they take life energy away. Simple. And this is how everything is structured. Earth, fire, water, and air. That's the level. And I'll just stick to the main interpretation here. Air is about thinking, water is about feeling, fire is about doing, action, and earth is about perceiving, senses. And so that's how we can understand our own psychology, so to say, our own inner functioning. Because at the bottom level we have our perceptions. We can perceive, we can see, we can hear, we can smell, and so on. They give us impressions. We have our instincts. They are on top of that. Yeah, they are our motory system. And then we have on top of that our emotions. And then at the very top are the ideas. And the ideas can trigger emotions. The emotions can trigger instincts. And the instincts can help us find the right perceptions. So that's a kind of hierarchy. And the words in English help us to understand that, because hot means ready for action. If I think somebody is hot, then it means I have some action in mind here. And when we say down to earth, earth is down. And be cool, what is cooled down is the instincts. They are cooled down. Like water is thrown on fire. And mind-blowing, that idea is so big, it blows our mind, makes it bigger. And they have different things they want. Thinking is looking for the truth, but our feeling is looking for something that is real. Real emotions. Doing is doing something that is just action. And perceiving is about pureness, pure impressions, pure smell or pure taste. So we want here the verity. Intellect wants verity. Our sensitivity wants authenticity. Operation in us wants correctness. And sentience in us wants purity. So it's about these four things. Air is about understanding. Water is about connecting. Fire is about practicing. And finally, at the bottom, earth is about consuming. And we can see what we are doing in this world. Most people are only consumers. That's why I didn't like the word conscious consumer too much, because in CCN, because consuming is the bottom word. But of course, we all are consumers, but we're also practicers. Yeah, we're practicing all kinds of things. We do things, and we connect, and on top of that, we understand. So we do all four of them. But our society is not helping us much to understand too much. At least not, I think, the truth about everything. This is how it was used in the old days to explain that, because these are just roles or types, or you can call it occupancies. A farmer is master over the earth. A king is master over action. A king tells what is not and what is good to do and what is not good to do. That's what the king does. A priest is master over the emotions. And finally, the scientist or the philosopher is master over the thinking. And that's why Hermes Trismegistus was named the 3 times greatest, or the thrice greatest, because it was the greatest king, the greatest priest, and the greatest philosopher, greatest scientist. Shouldn't take this literal. He didn't actually live, this guy. It's not a historical figure. It's a explanation of our consciousness. In my life, I can become a master of my own senses, which is rather easy to do. Then I can become master of my action. Then I can become master of my emotion. And I can become master of my thinking. And when I do that, I become like Hermes. And then I understand the Hermetic science. And this is actually the same. Astrology is about the mind. Alchemy is about the emotions, how to mix them, how to create the right emotions. And theurgy is about doing the right thing, because it's a mixture of God and work, the right work of God. To rush a little bit. And there are different ways. The way of the yogi goes through the mind, the right ideas. The way of the monk is controlling the emotions. And the way of the fakir is controlling the physical body. Yeah, laying on a bed of nails, for instance. Always to reach enlightenment. But there's a fourth way. And actually that fourth way is integrating these three ways into a total system. And that was called, I'll come later, I'll go back to that. Yeah, this is about mastering the nervous system, mastering the emotional systems, the hormones too. And this is mastering the mental system, your mind. And the fourth way is integrating these three into a new one, integrated way. Master Gurdjieff called it the smart way. Yeah, when you combine the three into the very, very most powerful way. But it starts with sensing yourself, self-awareness, self-remembering. These are the four phases of matter. We have solid, we have liquid, we have gas, and the fourth one, most people are not aware of it, is the plasma state of matter. And the universe is actually coming from top to down. So everything in the universe is plasma. Then we get somewhere gases, like Jupiter, around Jupiter is gas. And then we get liquid planets, like our own planet now. But of course, Tiamat used to be a liquid planet too. And we have solid ones. Yeah, inside, of course, our planet is solid, but the moon is completely solid. There's no liquid there. So this is also kind of hierarchy in the universe. This prayer is very important, but most people have no idea who this Father who art in heaven is. They think it's God, but that's wrong. It's completely wrong. And in order to understand that, let's look at another prayer. Our Mother who art in earth. This prayer you find in the Peace Gospel of the Essene. Again, not included in the 66 books of the Bible. I think it's really strange because this is really a powerful prayer. And if you understand who our Mother is, then you understand how everything is in balance. But by deleting this prayer out of the Bible, actually the whole book, the Peace Gospel of the Essene, is deleted. It's not included. Then there is a disbalance between the male and the female, between the yin and the yang. And that's exactly what they want. Because of that disbalance, they feed. From balance, there's not much feeding. Our Mother is, of course, the planet we live on, and I call her Terra. And Terra is, on the surface, 70% water. So this is from the space outside looked, it's water energy. And the water is together with earth. Our Mother is water and earth is earth. So this prayer is about the yin energies, the female energies. And that's why it was excluded. That means that the other prayer is about the yang energies. And we have two yang energies, fire and air. Heaven, where's heaven? Well, when I ask Ersin, most people say heaven is there. Exactly. And that's where we find air, because air is up and earth is down. So air is up, air is in the heaven. And then we have one more, which is fire. That means that our Father is fire in the air. Up in the air, there is fire. And that's true. There's a big sphere. And it's called, in Holy Science, it's called Helios. Helios is the Son of God. And He is our Father who art in heaven. And we can see Him every day, if there are not too many clouds. That's the symbol for our Father who art in heaven, for Helios. This symbol for our Mother, Terra. And this animal represents yin and yang of earth and water, because it's made of earth, but it's moving like water. So this representing the yin energies, water and earth. And the eagle does the very opposite. It represents air, because it's high up in the air. And it has fire. It's a fiery animal. Fiery animal. These are the original wordings. Yeah, just pause it and look it up for yourself. You can also find it on my website, pateo.nl. But also these wordings were altered by the Roman clergy. If you see the original wordings, then it becomes much more clearer. Actually, our Father who art in heaven is a prayer for the spirit. And our Mother who art in earth is a prayer for the soul. And they need to be together. You don't have nothing for the spirit if you not first activated your soul. Then there is no ground, so to say. The spirit is a combination of fire and air, and water. And soul is a combination of water and earth. I don't have time to explain all that, I think. So I'm going a little bit fast now. Pneuma, in the word pneuma, you see, it's a Greek word for spirit. You see the combination of fire and air, of course, because it's using air power, but that's why it's very strong. It's also fiery. So that's why I see the air essence and the fire essence in spirit. Yeah, somebody who is very spirited is full of fire. Yeah, a horse with a little spirit is a fiery horse. And soul, the Greek word for soul is psyche. I've studied psychology, but I've not learned much about the psyche because you're only in a subject about the history of psychology. But then came somebody like Sigmund Freud along, and he translated the word psyche into spirit. But there's a huge difference between the spirit and the soul. That's completely, it's like water and fire. So how could that be mixed? I think it's completely ridiculous. The psyche is something completely different than the spirit. And when you study psychology, like I did, you learn nothing about the real psyche. You learn only about the mind and about the emotions and all the problems that we create because we don't understand how they function. That's the truth about it. That's what we learn at the university. Holy science, however, helps you to understand the true function of our psyche and the true function of our pneuma, or the spirit. And when we have the word psychic, then we see that it's about perception. So it's perception, earth is perception, and it's extrasensory. That means it's you use an extra quality. You not use your own perceptions, you use your water qualities, your magnetic qualities. So it's perception through magnetism. That's actually what a psychic does. It's a magnetic connection, and that allows the psychic to see or hear things or other senses as well. So again, you see beautifully combination of water and earth here. So we can call the soul kind of magnetized earth, and the spirit a kind of electrified air. The spirit is above and the soul is below. We can say we get the spirit from above, it comes from up to down, and the soul is doing very opposite. It comes from down to up into us. So we can call the spirit also our superconsciousness and the soul our subconsciousness. And the archons are using our subconsciousness to influence us so that we don't get in contact with our superconsciousness. Because in here, they have no grip on us anymore. They cannot make us do anything. Holy science helps you to understand how to activate your spirit. So the spirit comes from above. That's the ancient picture here from 1732 showing you. It's fire coming from up, from air, down into people. The Holy Spirit. Indeed, the Holy WLL Spirit. And the soul is like water from the earth, water from below. It's coming in us. And when our soul is stirred, water is coming out of our eyes. That's the water. This is our Father who art in heaven, our Mother who art in earth, and combined they give us the four functions. We can think, we have feelings, we can do, and we can perceive. And that are the four basic functions, and we can call those four basic functions our body. Yeah, we have our sensory system, our nervous system, our cardiovascular system, and our cerebrum, our brains. And that's the four basic functions. So we can unite them into one, or we can consider them as one, and then we refer to it as our body. But there are two layers on top, and those are, of course, our spirit and our soul. And then we have the trinity of the soul, the spirit, and the body. But most people have not activated it. Most people think that our soul is our feeling. No, our feeling is here, and our soul is here. It's a different level. And our thinking is not the same as our spirit. Our mind is here, but our spirit is higher thinking. And you need to somehow develop that first. Otherwise, you don't have it. So most people assume they have a spirit and a soul, but that's not true. In essence, it's there, but you need to connect with it or activate it or feed it. If you don't do that, you don't have a spirit and a soul. You're a spiritless and soulless being. And actually, most people are that. Yeah, most people are spiritless because they can be controlled easily. If you have a true spirit, nobody can control you any longer. Spirit is yang, so it goes out, and the soul is yin, so it goes in. What do we need for that? We need something going in to feed our soul, and we need something to get out of us to activate our spirit. It's a combination of real and pure for the soul, and just and true for the spirit. Meaning, love is a combination for real and pure. Love is real and love is pure. That's love. And good means doing what is right. Doing is just, and what is right is true. It's doing the truth, acting the truth. That is good. And everything else is wrong. So by doing good, we stimulate the soul, stimulate the spirit, and by receiving love, accepting love, being open to love, we activate the soul or feed the soul. Physical body, everybody knows that we have a vital body that's inside, and they are combined together in what we call the body, but actually there are two different bodies. The astral body, that's when we dream, we use our astral body, and when we have outer body experience too, and when we die, some people have near-death experience, or how do you call it? Not sure how, but actually the body is already dead, this part is dead, and they continue living from the astral body. And then we have the mental body at this level. These are four different bodies, all on top of each other. And then the causal body is the soul, and the highest body is called the light body. Also, the word Merkaba is used here. Yeah, it's a star tetrahedron shape. So when we incarnate from our highest bodies into these lower bodies, because these two are connected. These two are connected. These two are connected. That's actually the true Trinity here. These two incarnate in here, and then they incarnate in here. Actually, this is what we call incarnation, because it goes into the flesh. Karna means flesh. So these two are mortal. When we die, these two exist stop to exist, and then we continue with these two. But in the end, we realize that we are only spirit and a soul, and we can connect them with the inner planets and the moon and the sun, Luna and Helios. Yeah, I don't have time to all explain. Sorry, there's much more to tell here, because there's a direct relation between the soul and the moon Luna. It's really important to know that. And a direct relation between the spirit and the sun Helios. That's why it's so important to worship the sun if you want to stimulate your spirit. And that's why they don't want us to do that. Because if we stimulate our spirit, then they have no longer control. Actually, it's going like this. The soul comes down into feeling, and that goes down into our body, and then our body becomes activated, and we have first vitality, then our mind gets developed, and in the end we can jump all the way up to our spirit. So it's more like this. This is, you can call it the yang column, this is the yin column. This is exactly what the Kabbalah is showing us. Yeah, these are the two pillars of the Temple of Solomon. That's a metaphysical temple, as I explained before. So the spirit is at the top, the soul is at the bottom. This is a female triangle, and this is a male triangle. Actually, I should have put this word differently. But that's how we can see it. Or we can look at it like this. Thinking and doing are the male, the yang activities, and feeling and perceiving are the female energies, the yin energies. This is the mind and the body. This is in the 3D world, and the spirit and the soul are in the world and the other side of the veil. We can compare ourselves with a kind of building or a house. We have two floors, but most people have never been at the first floor. They stay, the second floor. They stay down. They don't come up. At down, the base level, at the first floor, we have two rooms at the front. Everybody can see these rooms. Yeah, they have windows, and other people can look into these rooms. They can see what we do, and they can also see what we perceive, because they have the same perceptions. What we see, what we hear, what we smell. We share that with them. So these are open to the public, so to say. But at the back side, on the base floor, we have emotions and our thinking, our thoughts. They are hidden. They are not open to public. People don't know what we feel and what we think. We can share that with them, but we can also not share that. Yeah, they have to conclude that on the basis of what they perceive, on our facial expression or the way we behave. They conclude about our cognitions and our emotions, but it's not hidden. It's not open for public, so to say. So this is the base floor with two rooms in the front and two rooms in the back. And most people have never taken the stairs to the second floor, to the higher feeling and to the higher thinking. And that's why those rooms are empty. They're not occupied. And that means an entity can come in here. An entity can take over because we don't use them. they're standing there lonely and empty. So they can be hijacked or whatever. So there's a kind of stairways from the bottom all the way to the top. And most people don't get further than to this level. That's why the soul is so important, because the soul helps the way our thinking. But there are two more steps to go here. These four basic steps are all with the, you can call it the lower self, or the false I, or the ego minor. Here we have egoistic behavior. We can call this the it. It wants, it feels, it thinks, it does, it sees, and so on. This is the it part of us. And this is the higher part of us. Yeah, Sigmund Freud mixed this whole completely up into a complete strange presentation. This is ancient knowledge of how to reach to our higher self, our true I, our ego major, you can call it. Here we are altruistic, here we are egoistic. That's the major difference. Service to others, service to self. Yeah, if you've not activated your own higher self, you're not your higher feeling and your higher thinking, then you think that you are doing altruistic, but you cannot do it really. You do it just for a hidden meaning, yeah, in order to others appreciate you or whatever, think that you get rewarded or anyway. But if you truly understand this, then you don't need any reward or any compliments to be altruistic, because you understand the way things work. This dough, this highest dough, is the dough of everything, and this dough is the lowest dough of nothing. That's the silent meditation. They go to the silences, the complete stillness. That's this nothing. But you can also work your way up to this level. Both are God. God is here and God is here. Yeah, sorry, I don't have much time. Should have taken less time in the beginning, excuse me. At the sensory level, there can be problems with it. We can be blind or deaf or whatever. Yeah, these are malfunctions at the sensory level. At the motory level, yeah, we call it handicapped or crippled or invalid. So something is wrong with our muscles. There can also be something wrong at the heart level. Yeah, then we have heartless people. They cannot feel. They are machines, they are robots. We call them sociopaths. There's a huge difference between a sociopath and a psychopath. I'll explain that later on. Again, most people confuse those two. A sociopath is just not, has no emotions, no feelings for other living beings. So he's extremely cold. Yeah, people say Befehl is Befehl in German. So we have to do what the authorities ask from us. Heartless people can do that. They can do the most horrible things to other people because they have no heart, or they switched it off. There are also mindless people, and we call them sheeple. They behave like sheep. Well, they're actually people. And I think 90% of humanity is a sheeple. They don't think for themselves. They are parrots. They copy what the television is telling them as a truth, or what they read on the internet. They think that is all true. Sheeple. So they do what the herd does. They're not unique at all. Yeah, they're a poor excuse for a human being. And then here, the soulless people who have no soul. These are the psychopaths, because psycho means soul, as I explained before, and pathos is Greek for sick or dead. So these people have a sick or dead soul. And these people are very dangerous. I dare to say that everybody who is in top position in this world, in a big company or in government, is a psychopath. And I'll show you later on why I think that. And then we have spiritless people who have no spirit. They are empty inside. They are puppets, they're drones or cardboard cutouts or whatever, organic portals, background characters. They have no higher self, or their higher self is under control. But most of the time, their connection with the spirit is gone, and the connection with their soul will also go then. And when it is gone, then you can be taken over by another being, by an entity. That's why it's called an organic portal. Entities can come in you the moment your spirit is not connected. When it's gone, when the connection is gone, then you can be hijacked by an entity. And that's what they want. They don't want us to develop our spirit, because then they have no grip on us. This is how you can easily detect a psychopath. You can go to my website, you find the 13 character traits. You can easily put this on, on anybody, and then you just check. And if you have a check box, checked in every box for these 13 features, then you 100% certain it's a psychopath. And I know a few people who have all 13 yes. So how to deal with this? Step one is really simple. Understand. If you don't understand the way it's working, everything I just explained before, if you don't fully understand it, and I'm quite certain it might be tough because you hear it maybe for the first time, then do your homework, study it. Make sure you will understand it. Make it the most important thing in your life. Forget about television, forget about anything that might be interesting for you, because that's not. Even work and even money and everything, that's not important at all. The only really important thing is that you understand, because the moment you start to understand, you can take a different path from here. And then you change ignorance into insight. Most people, 90%, maybe even more, are completely ignorant. They have no idea what's going on. They ignore the truth. They consciously decided not to, or subconsciously decided not to see the truth. But the insight is important. That's what the old scriptures were all about. The Gnostics knew, they had insight. Only with insight you can make a difference. Without insight you can do nothing. Nothing. You can think you do good, and you can think that you are full of love, and you express love every day, but you not make a difference. It starts with understanding. That's the most important thing. Most people say, yeah, but the holy science is all in the mind, and I don't feel the love. That comes later. That comes later. First, make sure you understand. That's why I keep pushing that issue. And then the second step is open yourself up to love. But if you do that without understanding, it's actually a waste of effort. And then, of course, you can receive love, and it's good, but it doesn't make a difference in this world. And that's what it's all about. If we want to make a difference in this world, we need to understand first. And then we can stop being fearful. If you understand, there is no fear. Why should I be afraid of what? Of what? There's nothing. Death? No. There's nothing I'm afraid of. Nothing. So fear is not there. And then you can have faith, because you know. It's not belief. Belief is that you think you know. No, it's really knowing. And then you can have faith. And that faith will not be taken away from you. Like Justin Martyr, as he's called in English, he had real faith. He was not afraid to die. He was afraid to abandon his convictions, because then you give up. Then you lose the fight. And they don't want you to do that. Yeah, because what they fear most are people who have courage. When people have courage, they have no grip on you at all. They need cowards. All the politicians, all the people you know on television, they are all cowards, because they play along with the game. They don't have the guts to stand up and do it differently. So, but if you are courageous without understanding, it's completely silly. You're completely silly. It doesn't help at all. Yeah, the system will wipe you out. Have nothing to do with you. But if you understand, they cannot do anything. Look at the people who are still standing up, and they are still courageous. They know what they're doing. The others are just imitating or trying to. But if you do something without understanding, it's pointless. Yeah, I rushed a little bit because the second half was I needed much more time to explain. I hope that everything somehow was coming through. If not, then you can always contact me. My email address you find easily on my website. For now, I thank you for your time, and thank you for your attention. And I think it's very important to share the understanding, any understanding you already have, and share that, because then it can grow. Yeah, I'm not pretending that I know everything. Everything that I know, I've wrote it down, and I'm telling about it in my lectures. But there are many things I'm also discovering. So, but by doing that, by sharing it, it allows to grow, and that's so important. So that's my strong advice now. Your own understanding, even if it's not big at all, or maybe it's big but you don't think it's big, doesn't really matter. Share it, and then you will see it starts to grow and grow. And that's the only way we can get rid of this invasion of the archons, because we need to raise our own understanding. That's the most important thing. And nobody can help others to understand the world better. You cannot do the homework for somebody else. So we can share our understanding. That's what I'm doing in this episode of PateoTV and others as well. But then we still need to develop our own understanding. So I do hope I made a contribution with this broadcast. If you appreciate it, then become a pledger to the CCN. Maybe you want to support my work, because I'm doing this completely for free, and this is my way of living. I stood up against the system, and I stopped serving it. So I'm not serving it any longer. That means I have to somehow make a living still, but that's going good. But if you can help me, you can support me, I really appreciate that. And the best way to support my work is, of course, buying my books. Then it's a good trade. You get knowledge, and I get some money, which I can use to do groceries, to buy groceries and so on. Okay, I think time is up. Thank you for watching. Hope you tune in next time. Same frequency, same station, consciousconsumernetwork.tv. And the next English broadcast again is on July the 2nd. Thank you for now. Namaste.
If you really had to make a difference on a large scale with minimal resources, how would you go about it? Have you ever dared to dream of doing that which seems impossible? On a planet steeped with corruption and destruction, the question beckons, how do we change it? Media has a far-reaching impact on people and has been used to manipulate humanity into our current destructive patterns. In order to affect people into moving into constructive patterns of behavior, we need to construct a new paradigm of media. Conscious Consumer Network has been created with the explicit intention of giving the amazing truth-seeking, solutions-orientated, alternative media a place to fully realize their true potential, with a cutting-edge, high-tech professional media platform being made available to use at no cost to the broadcaster. In turn, some of the greatest freedom-seeking hearts and souls of our time have realized the true potential of what has been created and have come together to provide their insight and inspiration on CCN. Conscious Consumer Network has become a unique, interactive information and educational network which provides a free-to-view, live-stream, ultra-high-definition channel to the world and features 25 live shows a week and growing with the addition of multiple language broadcasts. CCN has features comparable with mainstream media, such as being able to pause and rewind broadcasts whilst being live streamed. Catch up on missed or previous broadcasts, now available from CCN High Definition downloads. You can now purchase a high definition download of your favorite CCN show from ethymarket.com. Support free and independent media by becoming a monthly pledger. This can be done with a monthly pledge of €10, which will allow you unlimited access to CCN's high-definition downloads, which hosts a back catalogue of over 250 shows which have been aired since the launch of CCN on the 1st of January 2015. In order to keep CCN free of corporate sponsorship and advertising, CCN has launched the Pledge 300 campaign. This is a realistic goal with the hopes of securing a minimum of 300 people who will each pledge €10 a month. With this number, we can continue to grow and operate and potentially expand into a second foreign language channel. Without it, CCN will simply not be able to function without succumbing to corporate sponsorship and advertising. Help keep alternative media in the hands of the people. We thank you for supporting free and independent media.